From the start, remember, right back at the start of this season, we had Trev on weekly on a Tuesday, and he would give me players to watch that were relevant to the draft going forward, and so we get a head start and all this sort of stuff, right? When we did running backs, right from the beginning, my running back 1 has been Michigan's Blake Corum. He remains my running back 1.
Right into Blake Corum, huh?
Yes.
Discuss.
I believe he's the best running back in this class. There's
not much to add. He runs the ball well.
So look, he was phenomenal in 2022, right? And then he got a knee injury, and he wasn't really the same guy last year. But he started to get it towards the end of the season again. He started to get back what he'd lost, that ridiculous explosiveness, quickness, short area ability, absurd, capacity to cut on a dime and contort himself into weird angles and just keep going. I was getting kind of David Montgomery vibes from him, just really, really good in short spaces and tight areas. Incredible vision, sets up defenders really well. This is a thing that running backs need. It's not just can you hit the correct hole. It's can you have a capacity to influence the gap, right? You're not just heading to where the space is. As a running back, you are part of the blocking scheme in understanding how to manipulate defenders away from where you want to go and then cut into that gap and take advantage of the space that you helped create. Corum is really good at doing that. The only criticism, not even criticism, the only thing I think he's lacking is like a true top gear max speed to just, once you get through the gap, once you make 20 yards, now you got to run away from the 4 people chasing you down from behind who are all defensive backs and probably faster than you are. He doesn't have that. That, I think, is the weakness of this draft class generally. That's my weakness for a lot of these guys is they're going to get caught at the 20-yard line having broken away for 40 yards. But it's also the thing I care least about for running backs in a way. Like if you can get 50 yards, I'm kind of okay with you getting tackled at the 20. You know what I mean? It would be nice if you housed it, but
I agree. I feel like
50 yards is more important.
I feel like I wrote about that a lot.
Yes, I do.
In this class,
yeah.
Lacks top end speed. There's a few that have it. I'm just saying, but there was a bunch where it felt this really good running back, but you're watching plays where he's just not breaking away from the defense.
Yeah, definitely.
Blake Corum has 2 plays that really stand out for me. You initially sent me this clip from last year against Indiana where he's at about the 50-yard line, 4 Indiana defenders in position to make a tackle, and he cuts back, turns it into a touchdown. And the flexibility and the bend that he has on that play is unreal. Now, Corum, of course, got hurt at the end of the 2022 season.
Yeah.
Wasn't the same for the majority of the 2023 season, was working his way back. But if you're getting, kind of reminds me a little bit of Nick Chubb, right? Nick Chubb, his highlight reel throughout Georgia in his 4 years when he was healthy was out of this world, but he was always battling back from injury, and it didn't look as good his senior year. He was still working his way back, and then Nick Chubb gets into the NFL, and he's an absolute freak as far as his ability to make defenders miss, have defenders bounce off of him, and take it to the house. I'm just saying, I'm not comparing the two players, but the battle back from injury and maybe not seeing the best of Corum in his last year.
You have to ask yourself, do you think the 2023 version of Blake Corum is who he's going to be going forward? I.e., was the injury that he suffered a permanently debilitating injury, or was that simply an injury that took a year to get back from, right? To get back, there's 2 stages, if you like, of recovery from a serious injury. There's when are you cleared for football and when you get back on the field, and then when are you 100%? When are you the guy you were before the injury? I don't think that that's a permanent injury to Blake Corum. I don't think we saw the best version of him was 2022, and he's never going to get back to being that guy again. At which point, you have to work from 2022 tape to determine what you think Blake Corum is going to be at the next level. And if you look at 2022 Blake Corum tape, I think he's clear running back 1 in this class.
There's another play from 2022 that I wanted to highlight because model linebacker Jack Campbell from Iowa. The model loved him last year. And when I was going through Jack Campbell's tape, I loved him on tape too.
Model linebacker and first-round draft pick.
And he eventually became a first-round draft pick to the surprise of a lot of people. I picked 18 by the Lions, except I said, yeah, of course, he's a 90th percentile model guy. Also didn't have a great rookie season. But the one play that scared me on Jack Campbell's tape last year was when Blake Corum put him in a blender, absolute blender, had a 2-way go, and Jack Campbell, who, by the way, tested extremely well, like all the athleticism, combine numbers for Jack Campbell, you say, awesome athlete. He had, at his size, Jack Campbell of Iowa, one of the best 3 cones, I believe it was, for any linebacker we've ever seen above 240 pounds, whatever the cutoff was when I looked at it last year. Blake Corum put him in an absolute blender on like a 30-yard touchdown run, and it was like, okay, is Jack Campbell actually athletic? Maybe question that athleticism, that testing athleticism, because of what Corum did to him on the field. So I put Corum a little bit lower. I'm going to put him at 5.
5?
Yeah. Maybe I'm a hater.
No, I don't. I mean, so.
But again, we could be all over the place.
I don't think there are many people that have him running back 1. He is number 3 on the consensus board. But again, so we talk about how tight it is bunched up between the wide receivers once you get into the second and third round. You know, there's like, I think there was 7 guys within 20 picks between like 30 and 50 or whatever it is, right? Running backs, nobody on the consensus board, nobody comes in before number 60. But then there's 3 guys between 60 and 76. There's another 2 before you get to 90. Like there's 5 running backs in a fairly tight 25, 27 pick range. So who's your running back 1?
I'm going to go Jonathan Brooks.
Okay,
from
he's
Texas.
my 2.
Okay, so he's coming off of injury, and I'll be honest. I mean, I didn't grind running back tape to the same level that I would another position.
Wow, you're just disrespecting the position right here.
No, I wanted to go off vibes, as the kids say.
Off vibes.
Off vibes, what I see, right? So I tried to capture the feel for the position. I didn't go through 300 carries or anything like that. I tried to capture the feel for the position. And so my immediate impression on Jonathan Brooks is, if he was healthy, I think he would be discussed in the first round conversation. He's just an unbelievable runner. Like, I'm losing words on how to describe it, but here's what I did. He knows how to like chop his steps to create space. And so I'm writing all these small notes, and at the end of the day, I'm like, he just does what he needs to do to maximize yardage. He is a smooth runner. I wrote that he hypnotizes defenders. Hypnotizes defenders. I actually wrote some haikus on some of the running backs too. I was in
your running back notes.
I was in a zone.
They're in the Lance Zierlein mold of just poetry.
I got into a groove. Literally, there are poems.
Literal poems
about running backs. I don't have one for Brooks, but he just runs at the right pace for what's needed. Pacing, setting up defenders, maximizing yardage. I think, and a pretty smooth receiver too. I think Jonathan Brooks has all of that when he's healthy.
Yeah, he has this kind of gliding style that reminded me of Arian Foster, similar to Jamal Charles as well. I don't think he has the raw speed that Jamal Charles had, but those 2 guys are the sort of finest proponents I can think of that gliding style of running that he has. Look, I think he's really good. He's my running back too. The only thing I would say about Brooks, so obviously he has the ACL injury. He's decided to come out anyway. I think that's the correct decision given the running back world right now. Like, even if he only gets drafted in the second round, it's starting to look like it's more important to just get NFL money and get started, because the second contract is what you're looking for, right?
Yeah.
So the faster you can start that, the better. It's more important to get to that second contract a year closer to your prime than it is to get a higher draft spot and get more money from your first contract. So I think from a personal decision-making point of view, Jonathan Brooks is correct to come out right now, come what may, even though he's coming into the league off an ACL. I also think, though, that another reason it's the correct decision is I think people are kind of giving him a pass for it. It's like, yeah, it's an ACL, he'll be back next year, we're all good. I think that Corum is being unfairly, I think his injury is counting heavier than Brooks's is, because we've seen a diminished version of Blake Corum off his injury, whereas we assume Jonathan Brooks will be 100% until evidence to the contrary.
So you're saying you might lose a year of production.
Not even that,
out of his 4.
But you might get a year that's less, and you might get a year of 80% of Jonathan Brooks, right? We don't know. He might be 100% this year and look great, but you might get the 2023 version of Blake Corum in Jonathan Brooks' rookie year.
For a year, yeah.
Right. But my point is, I think until that happens, the assumption is Jonathan Brooks will be 100% when he plays in the NFL, whereas because we've seen Blake Corum playing at 80%, it's being counted heavier against him than it is Jonathan Brooks. Do you see what I mean?
That's a fair assessment.
So
yeah.
I think you should be comparing.
It's like the Michael Penix argument that we keep making.
Like, I think you should compare 2023 Jonathan Brooks to 2022 Blake Corum.
Oh, then it's a battle between the 2 of them for sure. No, that's fair. I think that's fair. I might be in that biased mode because I'm just looking at the film. I'm making that assumption.
Right.
I'm assuming he's going to come back.
And it might be true.
The film's crazy.
We've seen plenty of guys come back from an ACL and looked 100%. So I'm not saying it will be a diminished version of Brooks. I'm just saying it's possible. And if it is, then I think it's harsh that we're treating Blake Corum worse because of that. One thing I wanted to highlight about Brooks, he has an absolutely sick juke move in the open field and leaves guys just grasping at air.
Hypnotizes them.
Regularly. Hypnotizes them. But just hits guys with this juke and they just like collapse in a heap, grasping at nothing.
I'm trying to find his gas.
His gas. Gotta hit the gas.
Did I lose it? Where are you, gas? It's not great. Okay, it's not. Gas doesn't matter a ton. I will bring it up later. It's interesting at the high end.
Now gas doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter at certain positions. 90th, he's in the traditional model. He's a 90th percentile running back. He's in the 90th plus.
Where's Corum?
In the blue. He's in the 60s.
Based off because of last year dragging him down?
Last year probably hurt him a little bit. I don't know the specifics of it, but 90th. I'll give you some 90th percentile running backs.
Do.
Josh Jacobs. This is in order of WAR that they've produced per season here. Josh Jacobs, Travis Etienne, Najee Harris, Jonathan Taylor, Jahmyr Gibbs, Saquon Barkley, Bijan Robinson.
Pretty
now on the lower end of that, there's 4 guys on the lower end of that. Darius Geis, Kenneth Gainwell.
Everyone loved Geis when he came out.
Yeah, same. Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Yeah.
And Antonio Gibson.
Okay.
Overall, though, you're looking at like 6 or 7 out of 11 that ended up being pretty productive.
Even the guys that weren't were all sort of darlings of people. Like everyone loved those guys, and they just haven't quite, they've underwhelmed once they hit but people love them.
And Antonio Gibson, his date is probably skewed a little bit because he was a receiver, and Kenneth Gainwell was the only guy that didn't go in the top 3 rounds. Almost all of them were first or second rounders. Pretty good history there. Now, that's not the new draft model.
No.
I will wait until this guy's name. There's a guy sitting atop the new model that you and I came up with together. Once his name is mentioned on this podcast, we will get into the new and maybe even better running back draft model.
That's standard.
So Jonathan Brooks is my 1 and your 2.
Have we got the same 3?
My 2, I haven't revealed. My 2 is Trey Benson. From Florida State.
So he's my 3.
That's your 3.
Yeah.
Okay, so Trey Benson's my number 2, and I do have a haiku
on Trey Benson.
This is gonna be one of my favorite shows of all time. Now, where's the haiku? Let me find it.
Yeah, no, we're gonna need the haiku if you've written poetry about the man.
Ready?
Yep.
Trey Benson. Can't arm tackle him. Nimble, but he's powerful. Second back off board.
Nice. Yeah.
Thank you.
One sad lone round of applause.
Steve's poetry hour. Yeah. Oh man, where's if Mike's listening? We used to do the fresh. There was a Fresh Prince episode where Will was joining the poetry club for the girl.
Yeah.
And there was some. They were like cannons to the right of them, and he had Jeffrey dress up like he was a fake poet. It was unbelievable. Great episode. I got to remember all the quotes.
Yeah.
After my haikus.
Perfect. All right. What do you like about Trey Benson other than the poetry?
I think that sums it up.
Oh, okay.
I think he's got an incredible combination of, he's got some shiftiness to him, and he's got that bowling ball, defenders bounce off of him. His missed tackle rate's one of the best we've ever seen.
He's the most prototypical sort of physical specimen of these running backs, right?
Plus, look at that picture. Like when you wear your uniform like that.
Yeah, like jacked. He's 6'1", 220 pounds, fast. Like he's got the speed. He ran like a 4.4 flat, right, at the combine, something like that, 4.39. He's got a really good speed, really good feel, I think, for north-south cuts. Like knows when to get upfield, hit the gap, particularly in zone. Like I think if you have a zone blocking offense, he just understands when to put his foot in the ground, plow upfield, get some space. He's got a good top gear. He's not one of those guys that tops out. I think if you get him into open space, into real estate at the second level, he can run away from people as well. And I thought he was pretty good for finding sort of creases and staying patient behind blockers for a guy that's as physically talented as that. A lot of people that are 6'1", 220 that can run a 4.4, they just want to get to top speed and 100% right away. Like he's got good patience and understands when to set it up. I liked him. I think he's a good back.
He sets up blocks pretty well. The other thing, when I try to watch, obviously a little bit of the pass game and everything, And I think with receivers, remember with Josh Jacobs, what was the play? He had like a jump ball or something where he looked incredible. And I feel like you can do one or two play scouting with running back receivers just to see what they're capable of, because you don't get a ton of opportunities. But Benson caught a back shoulder against Clemson. That was pretty nice, right? Like there's like a handful of plays that you see as a receiver for a running back that stands out and say, okay, this guy's capable of doing some stuff.
The college landscape hates throwing the ball to running backs. Like it barely does it. So some of these guys, like so many of these players, it's like 3 years of college football, 30 targets. You're like, what do I get out of that? I can barely tell if he can catch a football on 30 targets. But yes, there's a play in there I have it noted as well where like he's not used a lot as a receiver, but there's some big boy catches in there. That was one for Benson.
PFFer Josh Liskowitz is listening live.
Yeah.
He's an old veteran of the the Twitter draft community. And I had forgotten this, but he said he's the OG of the draft prospect haiku. I didn't realize this. I was just kind of in a zone as I was prepping for the podcast.
No, you weren't trying to make poetry. It just came out. It just flowed.
But he gave me a solid 7.2 out of a 10 for the haiku. So Josh has far more experience than me, and he's got a history here. I don't want to do the haiku, the prospect haiku, any disservice, but we're just trying to paint some pictures here. But I appreciate the 7.2. I'll take that.
No, nice.
Trey Benson's my 2, and he's your 3.